Hello everyone, thank you very much to the ICETOL organizers and to everyone joining us for this presentation. Our presentation is entitled Opportunities and Obstacles for Teaching Women Composers in Virtual Environments. My name is Laura Triviño Cabrera and I'm a professor of social science education at the University of Malaga. I'm presenting this work together with Marina Diaz Gomez, a student research assistant from the Spanish Ministry of Education. The study was conducted within the framework of the Freedom Research Project, which focuses on critical feminist literacy in teacher education. The project is funded by the Spanish Ministry of Universities and the Spanish State Research Agency and co-funded by the European Union. This work is also supported by the INSTIFEM, IHUMA, and IFA Research Institutes, the Multimodal Humanities Education Research Group, and the Bell-Hooks Educational Innovation Project. We would like to express our gratitude to all these institutions and teams. This research lies at the intersection of music education, gender perspectives, and immersive technologies. We begin with a very specific question. Can virtual reality environments help raise the visibility of women composers and teach students about their work, or do they risk reproducing digitally the some absence found in the traditional curriculum? With this framework in mind, we will now present the objectives that guided our study. Our overall objective is to analyze the opportunities and obstacles presented by virtual reality environments for teaching about the work and careers of women composers, comparing their representation with that of male composers in the same space. This overall objective is divided into four specific objectives. First, to conduct an exploratory review of platforms, websites, video games, and educational virtual environments. Second, to assess the economic and technical accessibility, paying particular attention to potential paywalls. Third, to determine the extent to which Spanish classroom are prepared to meet European and international regulatory frameworks. Finally, to formulate recommendations for teachers, educational institutions, and technology developers. We are not merely interested in identifying the available tools. We aim to assess who can use them, what knowledge they require, how much they cost to maintain, and above all, which genealogies and cultural role models they are helping to construct. Marina Diaz Gomez will now explain how we conducted the study and present our main findings.
The methodology used in the study is mixed, exploratory and descriptive. First, a systematic review was conducted, analyzing the academic literature on gender bias, the pedagogical use of virtual reality, and the integration of technologies in the classroom. The next step was to carry out an assessment of the platform designs to host virtual environments, analyzing both their technical and economic aspects. In addition, a practical approach was taken through the development of a virtual exhibition environment dedicated to women composers in order to explore its technical and pedagogical possibilities. The third step was to conduct a comparative study of classroom infrastructure in a Spanish school in relation to the European standard, analyzing whether they are prepared for the implementation of virtual reality and comparing the technological infrastructure with teachers' digital competence. Virtual environment platforms were analyzed according to the following criteria: access model, technical requirements, multimedia integration capabilities, and the explicit presence of a space dedicated to composers. A total of 7 platforms were analyzed: Mozilla Hubs, now discontinued, ArtStep, MetaStep, Horizon World, Zoe Immersive, Bloomberg Connect, and Unity. The analysis of the platform is illustrated in this graph, which shows the barriers to entry in their educational potential along the axis. Regarding barriers to entry, the main difficulty with this platform is paywalls, coupled with the use of software that is restricted to certain institutions. There are platforms focused on educational, but payment barriers can limit access. Similarly to the use of free platforms carry the risk of obsolescence. One of the most significant risks identified when analyzing some various platforms is the risk of digital obsolescence and the fragility to which digital heritage and educational resources hosted on digital platforms are exposed. The first step in the pattern is the use of free platforms by teachers without a budget to create virtual environments. In making this choice, effort is invested in design and integrating resources, which involves navigating to learning curve of the chosen platform. Sooner or later, a paywall is introduced, at which point the platform shifts its business model to a subscription-based one. Finally, the resources reach a state of obsolescence, where it deteriorates and consequently the teacher's efforts are lost, as they are unable to adapt to the new system due to the lack of resources. Beyond the technical availability and accessibility on immersive platforms, the actual feasibility of implementing virtual environments depends on the level of technical and skill-based preparedness of educational establishments. The analysis carried out shows that 92.3% of state, secondary, and vocational training schools have basic virtual learning environments. 62% of classrooms are equipped with interactive digital systems. However, virtual reality remains in limited use, relying almost exclusively on individual pilot projects. Compared to the situation in Spain at European level, projects and direct investment such as the Virtual World Skill Academy stand out, with funding allocated to virtual reality focus on professionalization and teaching through virtual environments. Teachers' general digital competence has increased. However, specific training of virtual reality for teachers is not standardized, which presents one of the main barriers to the integration of this technology. Teachers perceive themselves as users of proprietary software. As they are unable to design their own content, they remain dependent on commercial platforms. Having analyzed the result of the various proposed analyses, it is now time to examine the opportunities and obstacles presented by virtual environments. The main advantages of embracing virtual reality include the following. Firstly, immersion embraces retention, as it enables a deeper understanding than plain representation in textbooks cannot achieve. This, in turn, increases empathy and perspective as users are able to inhabit new environments, through what is known as immersion empathy. Physically, accessibility is another major advantage, as this brings distant places within reach of remote areas, such as rural schools, with no travel cost. Lastly, it enables multimodal integration, bringing together different types of material, such as audio clips, letters, photographs, within a single interactive environment. However, when working with virtual environment, we must be aware of potential obstacles. Cyber sickness include dizziness, disorientation, and eye strain following the prolonged use of virtual reality device, which limits the amount of time this device can be used by the students. There are also accessibility barriers, such as devices that are incompatible with hearing aids and the lack of the haptic alternatives. The excessive sensorial richness of virtual environments can also cause a sensorial overload that may overshadow the educational purpose and the resources understood for learning. Lastly, equipment cost is one of the main barriers, especially for common public schools. During our research, we have encountered a crucial obstacle characterized by silence. The representation of women in science within a virtual environment is already a reality through projects dedicated to women scientists, demonstrating that this approach works and that there are no technical limitations. However, music remains a neglected discipline. A search of virtual environments dedicated to women composers turn up no results. This happens because technology inherits from its creators. Digital exclusion is not a system failure, it is a direct legacy and androcentric curriculum. Those who design these environments reproduce the same biasness found in the traditional canon. This creates a false neutral environment. Virtual reality is not a neutral environment that corrects the historical gaps that education has carried forward. If the core curriculum overlooks women composers, technology has an amplifying effect, perpetuating the invisibility while cloaking it in a false modernity. Conscious, gender perspective-based teaching is necessary to prevent this new virtual world from being exclusionary. Based on the analysis conducted, there are a few guidelines that can be implemented to foster more inclusive digital genealogy. First, teachers should strive to transition from passive consumers to active creators of learning space, prioritize open source tools, and ensure local copies of multimodal materials. Institutions should focus on investing in specific technical training in virtual reality for teaching staff. Lastly, developers should design with accessibility in mind and seek to incorporate a gender perspective into resource libraries. Finally, as a conclusion, the use of virtual environments with gender perspective must be addressed as an urgent challenge that cannot wait for the market will. We have the necessary technology to offer new generation a solid women's genealogy. This space and resources exist. Our academic duty, therefore, is to build it. Thanks very much for the attention.